In the dawn of the 16th century, an expedition set forth with grandeur from Portugal, commanded by King John himself, bound for the mysterious East. But as the months turned to years, the kingdom heard no word of its king or his fleet. It was as though the ocean had swallowed them whole, leaving only questions that the waves refused to answer. Had they found paradise, or had they been claimed by forces unknown? What secrets lie beneath the quiet sea, holding fast to the fate of a king and his lost men? The year was 1502, a time when empires were forged by sea and conquest. Portugal, under King John II, was reaching for the world's riches across uncharted waters, confident in its seafaring might. King John, known as the Perfect Prince, was a ruler both feared and revered. He had expanded Portugal's power with precision, his gaze fixed on the east, where wealth beyond imagining waited to be claimed. For years, he had sent fleets to the coasts of Africa and the Far East, seeking new lands, resources, and alliances that would fortify Portugal's supremacy. But the rumors of a mythical realm, a paradise rumored to lie somewhere across the seas in lands yet unknown, fueled his ambition even further. Legend spoke of a hidden island, abundant with jewels and gold, and with creatures not found on any map. This was the island of the Seven Cities, whispered to be beyond the reach of ordinary men, but worthy of a king. King John grew captivated by these tales, convinced that his rule would be incomplete without discovering this land. He resolved to lead the next expedition himself, venturing into the unknown to lay claim to its treasures for Portugal. His advisors were unsettled, urging him to reconsider. The open sea was fraught with danger, its waters patrolled by merciless storms and even more merciless rivals. Yet the king was undeterred. He gathered a fleet of his most trusted men, hand-picked from among his most loyal soldiers and sailors, and provisions enough for a journey that could take them far beyond the known edges of the map. The day of departure was both somber and magnificent. Nobles and commoners alike gathered along the shore, watching as King John's ships, the pride of Portugal, pushed off into the shimmering horizon. The fleet sailed with purpose, its white sails billowing against the azure sky. There were murmurs among the crowd that the king would return with riches beyond imagining. But there were also whispers, quiet as the shifting sands, of curses on those who sought the mythical island, of ancient forces that guarded its shores. Weeks turned into months, and the shores of Portugal waited in vain for news of their king. The fleet, bound for legendary lands, vanished without a word. No dispatches were sent, no ships returned with stories of grandeur or despair. The only message to reach Portugal was the silence itself, a silence so profound that even the waves seemed hesitant to break it. The people grew restless. They scanned the horizon, eyes straining for any glimpse of sails, any sign that their king and his men had survived. Ships were sent in search, venturing along known trade routes and beyond, but they found nothing, only the endless expanse of water. Tales soon began to spread of ghost ships sighted in the fog vessels that looked familiar but bore no living souls. Sailors spoke of strange lights on the open sea and eerie calls drifting across the waves, almost as if the lost men of King John's fleet were reaching out from the depths. Meanwhile, in Portugal, grief turned to fear. Superstitions flared, and priests spoke of divine punishment. Whispers of curses crept into the court, and tales grew darker with each retelling. They spoke of phantom islands, of portals to other realms where those who dared venture would never return. They questioned whether the king had met a storm that obliterated his fleet, or if he had found the mythical island and paid a price too high for its treasures. As the years passed, the expedition became the stuff of legend, its story carried across generations. Explorers spoke of it in hushed tones, passing down tales of the Perfect Prince and his doomed quest, each retelling adding more mystery. Some said the fleet had reached the mythical island, but that it was a land not meant for mortal men, that the king and his crew had been trapped there, bound by ancient forces. Others believed they had been lost to the seas, devoured by a storm that wiped them from existence, leaving no trace. Then, nearly a decade after King John's departure, a ship washed ashore on the coast of Portugal, battered and empty. It was one of the vessels from the fateful fleet, its sails torn and its decks barren. Those who dared step aboard found only silence, save for a faint scratching sound that seemed to come from below deck. They discovered a journal, damp and barely legible, clutched in the skeletal hands of a lone sailor who seemed to have survived just long enough to leave a cryptic account. The journal, scrawled in faded ink, spoke of strange islands where the air grew thick, heavy with the scent of exotic blooms that cast sailors into deep, endless dreams. The writer described a place where the waters glowed in shades of blue and green that seemed alive, where creatures with eyes like fire watched from the shores. He wrote of a land that seemed to shift with each step, trees bending and whispering as if aware of the trespassers in their midst. He wrote of nights when the sky lit up with unknown stars, and of voices that filled the air, voices that seemed to call each sailor by name. In his final entries, he spoke of an overwhelming urge to follow these voices, to step deeper into the land as if it held the answers to every question he had ever pondered. His writing grew frantic, his sentences breaking into fragments, as though he had been seized by fear or madness. His last words, written in a shaky hand, were a warning. "We have found paradise, but it does not want us here." The arrival of the journal reignited the mystery, and soon new expeditions were launched to retrace King John's steps. But every ship that ventured too close to the rumored area returned empty-handed or not at all. Those who came back spoke of strange, foreboding waters, of compasses that spun wildly, and of an unnerving feeling that they were being watched. To this day, the fate of King John II and his fleet remains unsolved. His quest for the legendary paradise became a tale of obsession and loss, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurk in the unknown. Some say the king found his mythical island and became part of its ancient curse. Others believe he was taken by the sea, his ambition swallowed by forces that do not care for the dreams of men. What is certain is that King John's expedition never returned, leaving only legends of his lost paradise, a paradise that remains hidden somewhere beyond the reach of any who might try to find it.